All right, good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Civil Society Alliances for Digital Empowerment, CADE project, I'd like to welcome you to this particular session on cyber laws and civic space, Global North and Global South advocacy strategies. Our session today, the idea is to share among ourselves lived experiences among CSOs or activists that are in here on issues to do with cyber laws and how cyber laws are, restricting civic space in our countries or in our regions. And so to discuss this, in front of me, I have our panelists, Daniela from DRI. DRI is also part of the Strengthening Enabling Environment initiative, which is co-funded by the EU. I have Christian Leon from Internet Bolivia. I have Patricia Aine Mabazi from CIPESA. I have Juan Diego from Charisma, Colombia, and Abedi Kataya from CIMEX, Lebanon. I'll also be assisted by my colleague, Stefan from Diplo. She's the online moderator. So, Stefan, when there is something to discuss or we have anything burning from our online participants, please do let me know. Before I forget, we also have Bimshara from Savodaya Fusion, who is joining us online. He couldn't make it physically, but he's joined us online. So at some point, I also go to him to share his perspectives. So to kickstart our discussion this morning, I'll start with you, Abedi. You recently conducted a case study for the MENA region, which was looking at cyber laws making in that region. Could you just share, based on your experience, some of the issues that came out of that particular case study? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth, and good morning, everyone. So yeah, in the MENA region, actually, we noticed that the cyber crimes laws are being issued. We have a big threat when it comes to cyber crimes, when it comes to cyber security in our region, because when you have like many countries with that are rich in fuel and other countries that are in conflict with others, so we really need to be aware of the cyber crimes and cyber everything. In addition to that, we're witnessing a lot of cyber crime attacks, as well as scammers attacks on users in these regions. So this led to the need of cyber crimes laws, because there is a huge need there. In the recent years, like many governments have been working on showing and also passing cyber crimes laws. But unfortunately, most of these cyber crimes laws are being used to suppress civil society, journalists, and dissidents. We've studied like many countries in our region, like Tunisia, Egypt, Iraq, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia. We found that some copies of the cyber crimes laws are very well structured and very well put. But when it comes to the implementation, we see that they are criminalizing online speech. And when we talk about online speech, this means journalists, activists, and even like regular people who are using online platforms to express themselves. In addition to that, we found that, like in several countries, there is no parliaments, so the executive power is the only entity that are working on issuing these laws. So there is no engagement from civil society, no engagement for anyone, and they just pass these laws and regulations. In other countries, actually they do public consultation with the civil society, but then they do whatever they want. We heard you, we sat with you, and then we will do whatever we want, and this is something that we really need to fix. Also, in more examples on the abuse, we see that we really need to focus. Like for example, in countries like Lebanon, we don't have like cyber crimes laws, but the penal code is being used to criminalize cyber crimes, in addition to criminalize online speech. So even if you don't have a cyber crime law, online speech has been criminalized and also been used to suppress other opinions. I will be short. Yeah. So we really need from the governments and also the CSOs and we have like come out with some recommendations, and I will share them right now. Yeah.
Maybe the recommendations later. Yeah.
Later. Okay.
Yeah. I'll come back.
So
to
this is like what's happening in our region in terms of CSOs engagement and the internet governance processes, because we really believe that fighting cybercrimes is part of the internet governance, and like regulating and having a safe space online for people is something that we really need to regulate, but we don't need it to be oppressive. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Abedi. Now we move to Latin America. We have two representatives on the panel. So Christian Leon, Internet Bolivia, and then I'll come to Juan Diego. So you share, I'll give you 5 minutes, so you split the 5 minutes.
All right. Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So Latin America is a region in which three things are catastrophically combined. First thing is bad ideas of regulations with very bad intentions. The second thing is disproportionate and mostly unconstitutional actions to protect security. And the third thing is lack of capacities and knowledge on public decision makers on how to regulate technologies. Regarding the first one, there are several cases of anti-NGO laws that have recently been created in Paraguay, El Salvador, Peru, Nicaragua, Venezuela. There have been also attempts to try to regulate online content, often passes as legislation against disinformation or hate speech. But in the truth, there are laws that try to give censor capacities to governments. And of course, all the legislations that endorse the strengthening of security measures, including surveillance through cameras, facial recognition, and the creation of databases for the fight against drug trafficking and organized crime, among the other cases. Unfortunately, from the cyber laws perspective, Latin America is a playbook of what not to do, because these cyber laws are actually becoming instruments that allow governments of all political lines and perspectives to carry out measures that only erode our rights and freedoms. I don't know if Juan Diego wants to...
Yeah. No, thank you. And maybe something to add is that more increasingly we have laws that are not just cyber laws. So we were used to have laws that are regarding only digital spaces and digital context, but increasingly we have discussions on many other issues that maybe we as civil society organizations working on the digital space, we are not used to work with. For example, some issues, at least for us in the Latin American context, it was issues of kids protection, for example. This has been increasingly a place from which obviously is the experience of all other parts of the world, but it's a place where we have a lot of laws trying to reclaim parts of the digital space and to regulate the space. And we have a lot of regulation regarding these issues, and then as civil society organizations, we just don't have to contend with the regulators and with the courts on these issues, but also with other civil society organizations that have been working traditionally on other spaces. And that's, I think, one of the main changes in the landscape. So maybe talking about cyber laws or exclusively about cyber laws, it's something we might have to stop doing in the future, because it is going to be just laws. So the space is going to be flattened.
All right. Thank you so much. Coming to you, Patricia, I do understand CIPESA conducts regular studies on the state of internet freedom in Africa. What key trends or insights have emerged from the studies that you've been conducting?
Thank you, Kenneth. I just feel the need to explain that CIPESA stands for the Collaboration on ICT Policy for Eastern and Southern Africa, just for the case of those that did not know. And we do have this report that we do every year, which we call the State of Internet Freedoms in Africa, or CIFA. And there are some sets of recurring trends or recurring things that we point out, one being an increase in surveillance and communication interception, as well as expansion of internet shutdowns in Africa. So to note, between 2016 and mid-2023, we had about 146 internet shutdowns that were documented across 37 African countries. And we have seen governments use this thing about internet shutdowns, to stifle dissent and hiding behind things like protection and security purposes. However, we do know that these are things that they're doing that are not right for the citizens in those countries. We have also noticed a rise in tech-facilitated gender-based violence, especially for women and girls, and as well as an increase in the vague or repressive cyber laws. So in these reports that we do annually, we have partners that we work with across the continent, so to say sub-Saharan Africa, and we have noticed that indeed all these countries have cyber laws in place. However, they're sort of done in a vague or ambiguous manner so that the governments can always use them to stifle dissent and repress people's rights as and when they want, especially during elections, as well as any little thing that happens in these countries. The other thing that I should note that we've noticed is the role of big tech, or the role of outside energies in these countries. You would expect, let's say, Google or Meta, or as well as X, to have a role to play for these citizens and say, we cannot do this or that, as well as surveillance, because we've seen countries in Africa using technology from other countries. So to say, I'm not going to mention specific countries, but in Europe, as we note, you would expect these technology companies to have a moral obligation to rise up to the standards of the people. However, this is something that is not yet being done. It's not yet being done properly. And we do hope, as we go forward, that African countries can have sets and also be able to define what they mean when they say this is what amounts to a violation of maybe what is misinformation, disinformation, and a violation of laws in the specific dockets that they do. I'm sure you'll be asking me the next part to mention the next part of the question, so I will let that go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Patricia. Coming to you, Daniela. I do understand that your project, the Strengthening Enabling Environment, has been implementing an early warning mechanism, which, among other things, identifies the in-country threats. I think some of the issues have been mentioned here. Yeah, and these are issues that CSOs are facing. Could you please highlight some of the issues you have gathered and so far, and also maybe share with the audience how you're implementing this early warning mechanism? Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth, and thank you for the kind invitation to Forus and to the CADE project. Yes, I am part of the EU System for an Enabling Environment for Civil Society, or EUC, which is a consortium of international organizations and network members working across 86 countries in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, the Pacific, the Americas, and the Caribbean. And as you were saying, we do implement an early warning mechanism that tracks developments and emerging trends in the enabling environment for civil society. We monitor 6 principles, and one of those principles has to do with civil society's access to digital technologies and whether civil society actors can operate freely and safely online without censorship, surveillance, cyber attacks, etc. And indeed, in the past 6 months, which is since we started collecting this information, we have received consistently many reports on this issue, highlighting how these cybercrimes laws are being misused to restrict civil space and civil society in our network members. So I'm going to mention some examples on that. For example, in January of this year, we received a report from Pakistan at the beginning of the year, the Parliament amended its cybercrime legislation, which is known as the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act, and it introduced a new criminal offense related to the distribution of false and defamatory information, particularly with regards to public authorities. And of course, this amendment also granted the government broad powers to block or remove content online. A particular example of this misuse came in April. This was a report we also received from our network member, in which an investigative journalist, Ahmad Nourani, was charged under this very law for 3 counts, including cyber terrorism, defamation of a state institution, due to his reporting on alleged military corruption. Similarly, in April, we received a report in Zambia, from Zambia. I think, it has gained more attention. The Parliament also passed 2 controversial bills, the cybersecurity and the cyber crimes bills. This, despite strong opposition from civil society organizations who criticized the bills vague and overly broad language, also granting surveillance powers to the government, and these bills didn't include really adequate oversight mechanisms to safeguard against privacy violations. And what it's important is that these bills were passed almost with little public engagement or transparency, to the extent that it gained wider attention only after a foreign embassy issued a security alert about this issue. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, also a law was implemented, as a new cybersecurity law was implemented, consolidating control over digital spaces and curtailing civil society digital security. And in Sierra Leone, the social media influencer Hawa Hunt was arrested, lived on a reality TV show for criticizing the president, and also was charged under the Cybersecurity and Crime Act from 2021. And the charges were later withdrawn following an advocacy campaign by civil society groups, but this demonstrates how these cybersecurity laws can have a chilling effect on civil society freedom. So there are many examples, and quickly to finish, I think my colleagues here in the panel have mentioned the patterns that these cyber laws and the misuse of these cyber laws have: use of vague and overly broad language, the creation of powerful enforcement authorities, or like adding a lot of enforcement power to already existing authorities, a lack of meaningful consultation with civil society groups, or consultations that are purely symbolic, arbitrary applications once these laws are issued, and critically, the absence of strong safeguards regarding like privacy violations or violations to fundamental rights. And I'll pause here now, and we can continue discussing more advocacy strategies in the next.
All right. Thank you so much. Going online now, Paul, if you can help us. Bimshara from Sri Lanka. Bimshara works for Savodaya Fusion. Bimshara, if you can share your own perspective from the Asia region.
So thank you, Kenneth. Hopefully I'm audible for everyone. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. And actually, so when it comes to the CADE project, Savodaya Fusion is one of the organizations representing, actually we are the only organization which represent the Southeast Asian region. So actually under the CADE project, we have trained professionals and civil society staff in Sri Lanka and Maldives, and where the civil society representation in IG processes are quite low in our region. And so we successfully completed that programs. And so as a second part of this project, we are targeting a couple of initiatives, especially to enhance the engagement of person with disabilities, engagement with IG processes, as well as there is a quite lack of engagement among the academias of our region. So we are targeting to enhance them by providing an opportunity with a research symposium. And our perspective is in our region also, we also seen a couple of internet breakdowns in actually social media breakdowns in past years. So hopefully with the support of Horus and the Diplo Foundation, we are hoping to conduct a case study. So, and within this year, we would be able to publish a comprehensive study on related to that. thank you, Kenneth, for this opportunity, and it's actually for the Stephanie as well.
All right, thank you so much, Pimsara. We have 5 minutes to get quick reactions from the audience. We have 2 mics, one which is on your left, which is my right, and then the other one there. If there is anything, any burning comment, question to our speakers, I invite you to move to those mics. Anyone? Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Does this work? Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for the presentation so far. My name is Mia Marzotto from Oxfam. A couple of you mentioned how international companies or multinational companies have a role to play in some of these restrictions on civic space and the abuse of cyber laws. I'm also wondering, in your experiences, the role of outside governments, right, or international institutions. Have you been engaging with those? Do they help in your advocacy strategies on these issues, or do the governments of your respective countries take issue when there is international pressure from governments or international institutions? Thank you.
All right, thank you. We pack it. Any more from the audience? Yeah, go ahead, David.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you so much for the presentations and the interventions. My name is David, and I work with the European Union System for an Enabling Environment for Civil Society. Very quickly, the issues that were raised by the panel, especially the internet restrictions and other digital restrictions, including the laws and legislation. The same way we preempt restrictions in the physical space, maybe protest and other government attacks? Are there ways in which your organizations preempt these restrictions? And secondly, the colleague from CIPESA, really good to listen to the statistics about internet restrictions across the continent. When you document these restrictions, what happens after that? Do you provide any kind of support to civil society to, I know there are organizations that, you know, like the Keep It On Coalition and others, are you part of such coalitions that provide responses when there's shutdowns, given the impact not just on civic space but on health, education, and almost all aspects of life?
Thank you so much, David. Okay, I think I can go to our speakers. So I'll start with you, Patricia, because you got, I think, 2. I don't know if you attempt the other one, but I think the other one is just asking everyone to say, what are we doing about these things, which is, I think, where we're going next. So you combine his 2 questions, and then you also share with us what do you think are some of the strategies that we can, you know, take on board in order to address the issues that we have come up with.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. To the first question about the role of the intermediaries, I'm talking about the outside forces. On the African front, we have a new development. The African Union has come up with a resolution 630 that looks at states having to hold tech companies accountable. As such, would be expecting accountability on their part. We are looking at what are they doing in these countries. Do they understand the laws of the land? Are they there for harm or good? So that's a really good measure that we've noticed and documented as CIPESA. And on internet shutdowns, we also have actually a good success story. We continue to work with different coalitions. Keep It On is one of them. We've also gone ahead to work with human rights lawyers, activists, as well as the judiciaries in the different countries. You've talked about, apart from documenting, what next do we do? We have supported and worked with partners like Media Defense and Amnesty International. We have success stories from the ECOWAS Court, where rulings were actually towards, to the rights of the people in these countries. We have countries like Nigeria, we have Togo and the rest, even Guinea, on internet shutdowns around elections and other things that happen in these countries. So we do not only document, we also go ahead to advise on the next steps and also work with the different countries or different partners that we have in these countries to come up with solutions. We do trainings, we do capacity building in all forms, And I think the other question would also be answered by the rest. Thank you.
All right. I'll go to you, Daniela. Apart from sharing the strategies, I would also want you to weigh in on, I think, what David asked to say in terms of what are we doing about this. And for the EUC project, could you also share which countries is this targeting? How big is the EUC project? Yeah, over to you.
Thanks. Yes. So the EUC project has network members in 86 countries. As I said, in Africa, in the Middle East, in the Americas and the Caribbean, and Asia and the Pacific. And I think under this EUC project, one of the first things we started to do is to build coalitions or to provide spaces for all these network members to share and exchange experiences about this, because as we have seen during the discussion, this is different in each country, but it has like a very clear pattern of how these laws are enacted and how these laws are used. And very recently, last week, we held a conversation with the network members on the use of cyber security laws in each of different countries, and we discussed the importance of building these international and global coalitions for a topic that, again, has consistent patterns across different countries. And I think that's a very first step to start building these coalitions, to start having these discussions. The second step, I think, is try to use these coalitions and these platforms to influence the regulation on this topic at the international level. So very recently was adopted the UN Cybercrime Convention, for example, and despite, again, many concerns from human rights actors and civil society actors, some of the things that were in the final draft still raise concerns about broad language, about clauses that may open the door for things that could be misused. So the second step, I will say, is again trying to influence as much as possible international instruments dealing with this topic, because those become somehow standards then for the governments. And finally, I think what Patricia was saying, I think, is super clear, and it was discussed in this meeting that we had last week with our network members, the importance of strategic litigation and engaging with the judiciary authorities in the different countries, because many of these laws are direct violations of the principles of legality, of non-discrimination, of legitimate purpose, necessity, proportionality. I think we discussed that yesterday as well. And I think the violations are very clear, and engaging with the judiciaries and engaging in strategic litigation is still a valid and effective form where possible to deal with this issue.
All right. Thank you so much, Danielle. To you, Christian, I know you're wearing two hats. You're also representing the Recipe initiative, which is this sister initiative to the KED project. Would you also weigh in terms of what you're doing as Internet Bolivia, as well as the Recipe initiative?
Yeah, sure. As the same as Daniela, I think it's coalitions. I have to mention two examples. One was within Al-Sur, a Latin American coalition of 11 organizations working towards digital rights. We organized working groups to advocate in different international forums. One was in relation to the UN's International Cybercrime Treaty. For this, we created this mechanism that was called Brain Trust, in which we organized together with SEOs from the Global North in order to campaign together. And even though the treaty ended as we know, at least I think this was a very good practice that we can replicate in other international forums. And this coalition also allowed us to, through policy calls, to share in a trustful way our own learnings in this forum. Another example is the Recipe project, in which we are part. Is a similar project as CADE. Organizations from the Global South, we are working together with organizations from the Global North, such as Oxfam, Develop Foundation, in order to exchange and transfer our capacities and our resources in relation to common objectives. So I think coalitions, they really work. Of course, I'm not telling you anything new or anything really innovative, but are things that have proven to work, especially in a moment in which we know that global governance is in crisis, but at least civil society organizations are forging the networks and collaborations across the globe that we need.
All right, thank you. Coming to you, Juan, could you please share what you're doing? Charisma is based in Colombia. What are you doing about the issues that we just discussed here?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, Christian mentioned one of the big things we're doing, which is participating on this coalition called El Sur. But I think engaging a lot with other organizations, having these conversations, is something that is actually helping a lot our advocacy efforts. One of the issues we've been having a lot is we monitor more than, or at least 100 initiatives for every legislative period. In what we have in Colombia, and it comes with what I said first, which is how the spectrum of legislation and other initiatives that we follow has been broadened. So it is an issue of how to stay ahead of the luge or the many initiatives of legislation that we have, and the collaboration with others, trying to think about how your local cases, how your local experience can help other processes and other organizations that are on the same level or that are in a broader scope, regional or global scope, helps a lot. We have, for example, in the same cybercrime convention, that was an also good example because we shared resources with other big organizations, for example, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, that could have a person following immediately all of the discussions, and that is something other organizations like ours couldn't do. So this way of them bringing the conversation and keeping up with it, like minute by minute, could help us really engage with the whole process, because it's something otherwise we couldn't do so easily. These are the type of things that I found we have found very practical, that could help a lot of the participation of civil society organizations from the South into other conversations that otherwise we wouldn't have the resources to attend.
All right, thank you so much. Coming to you, Abedi. Apart from sharing with us the recommendations that you wanted to share, I also want you to address, you mentioned the issue of executive dominance in terms of making the laws. What are you doing about it?
Yeah. Well, first I would like to answer Mia's question, because there is something I would like to share, which is like in our region, for example, when it comes to foreign pressure and also the pressure from tech companies. Actually, what we need is a grassroots change, not the pressure from foreign government, because we really believe that this pressure would be, and the governments and even the local authorities would respond somehow positively to the foreign pressure, but then they would do whatever they want. In addition to that, we really see that foreign governments do the pressure and whatever they fit them, not what they fit the local society. When it comes to tech companies, they really don't care about human rights, to be honest. And we've seen a lot of cases in Egypt, in Jordan, where activists and influencers were being put in jail. And we reach out to these companies, and they don't react. They did not even respond to these requests. They had several meetings with the authorities during the same time of these incidents, and they did not raise any issue regarding these influencers and these users who are generating money for them as platforms. What they care about is only to stay in these countries and to generate money. That's it. So coming back to your question, Kenneth, is so regarding the executive, like the power of executive, actually, as I said, as I mentioned here, we need a grassroots change, a grassroots reform, which requires the CSOs to be more active, to be more engaged with the society, and to know more about the local legislations and the local dynamics. Because, you know, I know we are living in tough countries, but we really know to understand the dynamics and to build these relationships and somehow to challenge things, and other times to like to coordinate with some people who and policymakers, and not to be in conflict with them all the time. In addition to that, we really need the governments to have open engagement channels. We really need, we ask them to have these channels. Yani, I know sometimes they don't work. Sometimes these channels, yani, they are only just for the sake of just exposure or something like propaganda, but we really need them. We really need them to understand the importance of this. And as from our discussions today, we really, as civil society, we mentioned to them sometimes not only human rights, but also the economic benefits of being open, of being like advocates for data protection and privacy, because in nowadays ecosystem, and you really need to be data protection oriented to have a successful business. Yeah, so this is something that we really need to do. In addition to that, the government should uphold human rights and should like put the human rights like in the top of everything they do as policies. So, and when we say human rights, that means everything for the sake of people and the sake of regular users. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Abedi. We quickly go online, so over to you, Steph.
Thank you, Kenneth. We have a question from Bibi Abruzzini. It's been partially answered by the speakers here, but I will share it. So from a communications and the citizen participation standpoint, can you share any effective strategies, any effective campaigns in your region that can inspire civil society organizations to act as a bridge with communities and shape policies? Thank you.
Wow. Who wants to take that one? The audience is also invited. Who wants to share any experiences? Do you want to do it, Daniela?
I mean, I can share the experiences of our network members. I know that, for example, in Sierra Leone, there was a very successful case with this social media influencer that I mentioned at the beginning, of a lot of advocacy efforts by civil society groups, by international actors, a lot of movement in social media that made, in the end, created like a lot of pressure in the government to release this person, this woman, this person. And I think that was a successful case, no? Like a lot of creativity and engaging, again, national actors, but also international actors, creating coalitions and adding pressure to governments. So I think that was a successful case.
All right.
I can take me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. In Africa, we do have the Keep It On campaign, and I think it's a very successful campaign to answer that. It has led to the strategic litigation, and we've seen the results of it. And clearly, like every organization has had a hashtag to that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm getting strategic litigation. I think it's coming up frequently. But is this something that is easy to get? Let's say if we're talking about the global South, because I think I heard it first from Daniela. I'm getting it again from Patricia. What do you think?
I think it's not easy. I think obviously this also depends on how strong the rule of law is in a particular country and how stable the judiciary system is, how independent it is. So there are a lot of factors. I come from Colombia as well, and despite many problems and issues, and Juan Diego can help me there, but I think still there is, for example, we have seen changes through strategic litigation, and we have seen progress and benefits of engaging still with the courts, etc. So I think, of course, it's an ad hoc thing. You have to understand it in the specific context, but I think at least in some cases it works.
All right. Quick one. We've run out of time.
Quick one.
Yeah.
This is now wearing the hat of Stephanie Borg-Psaila from Diplo. Diplo is the lead partner for the CADE project. On one hand here, I heard, for instance, Abed, you said that CSOs shouldn't take a confrontational stance with the governments because they need to be working together. Yeah. On the other hand, the litigation aspect has come up very often. Mm-hmm. How do we balance this, right, between the aim of working together, but at the same time we're taking governments to court? So how does that play out, especially regionally? Yeah?
Yeah, I can start. Actually, it depends on every country's context. So I cannot, I'm sharing my experience here from the region, and not all the region. I mean, it differs from country to another. I think the same applies to other regions and other countries as well, because it's a trial and error thing, and you need to engage with the local governments first to know what are the dynamics that make this government act and make them act in favor of human rights and in favor of CSO's engagement, and then you will see later how to move and what are the next steps. So, for example, if I'm talking about Lebanon, it's something different from Jordan.
All right, thank you. Like I said, we've run out of time. We circulated a sheet of paper. If we can put our names, we hope to take this discussion forward. So if you can register your interest, we'll be reaching out to you to continue this discussion. Thank you so much to our panel of speakers and those participants who joined us online. And thank you, our audience, and thank you for the technicians for helping us with this session. Thank you all.
Thank you.